Okay, great. So welcome everyone. I want to quickly introduce Dr. Andrew Campbell for those who may not have attended a session so far. DR.ABC is an Ontario certified teacher who works for Toronto District School Board. He also has a PhD in Educational Leadership Policy and Diversity. He's a faculty member for the University of Toronto's Master of Teaching program and also a professor at Queen's University. Today's conversation is around the culturally responsive and relevant educator. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Campbell.
Thank you so much, Carly. Thank you so much. Good to see everyone. And especially for those who'll be listening later on, really good to see you. We do have time for those who are rushing and getting in the room to ask them to come and join us. Today is the last day in our series, our 4-part series. And I can tell you that I know for a fact that you have listened to the recording, but other persons who have seen the recording have, been benefiting from it and use it in your conversation. So thank you so much. But as we get into this conversation today, what I would love to do is I want to go back a little bit. I want to go back a little bit further to the early part of our conversation. Early part of our conversation. I want to take a minute to do that actually. And I want to go back to where we started when we started in our talking about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. Of course, this is not new. We have not had this conversation once. We have had this conversation a number of times. And so I want to go just back a little bit when we talk about high expectation back in our second part. So if you missed part 2, you go back to the second video when we talk about having high expectations for all our students. And I wanted to underline something because now, we talk about deficit thinking, we talk about high expectations, we spoke about culturally relevant responsive pedagogy. Today we're talking about the culturally responsive educator, focusing on ourselves. And I want to link that a little bit with culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. And I want to go back, Carly, to talking about holding high expectation. What does that mean? And I remember when we had the conversation, it's very deliberate to saying to you that, the truth is we all want to say we live in a world where every single teacher do have the best intentions and the best, dream for their kids, for their students. I absolutely believe that. The issue we're having is that there's a contradiction between how you're excited about your students, how you want to make sure that they become who they become, and what you actually do. And that is why we're challenging and talking about the culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. And I want to hold that with a high expectation today. I want to really craft that today when we talk about these things. So the first one I want to review is focusing on our students' strengths. What is it that they bring to the classroom? No student is so challenging that they bring nothing. We know that. And we want to make sure we focus on what is it our students bring to the classroom. Because when we think about what they bring to the classroom, we think about their cultural capital, we think about their schema, their experiential background, and we think about how do we best treat, or I like the word treat, I didn't mean to say that, but I actually love the word treat. How do we best serve our students? So I want you to link the high expectations with the cultural relevant responsive pedagogy. Focus on their previous experience, right? The fact that they don't come to the school empty, they bring something. They do bring something. When I discover students in my class who are good at music, good at dancing, and you were saying, well, we're in a science class, I never go, well, what am I going to do with that? You know how many teachers I know who have allowed their students to create a math song, to do a math rap, to do a math song, to do a math poem, to do a math speech, to do certain things with math. So think about it. What can I use? Because I'm going to tell you why I'm spending the time to do this before we get into the other stuff that we want to focus on today. I wanted to kind of connect the videos, number one, because it's the last in the series, but also to give you that understanding that the pedagogy and the practice is connected and it's who we are. And so we talk about the language of hope. How do we speak to our students about what we want for them? You see, the challenge we have had and I want to stop this a minute, the challenge we have had in the many discussions, Lynn, you're hearing about culturally relevant responsive pedagogy. The challenge we have been having is teacher mindset. So I can tell you, we're good. We're good. There ain't no teacher that I believe don't have the skills. What we are having is the people are saying, this is too much, this is too much, this is a part of, this is something added, you know, equity on the sideline. Now I'm gonna have to go to equity. Once I hear a teacher says, now I have to go talk about equity, now I have to go talk about deficit thinking, now I have to go, I realize they don't get it. Because like I said in an interview the other day, I think somebody said to me, Dr. Campbell, that was one of the most powerful moments. I said, how are we embodying the work? Lynn, have you embodied the work, or it's just a bunch of notes you have taken? Have you owned the notes, own the notes? Have you embodied the notes? That you look at your students and say, there's some things happening here. There are some barriers to the success. I have to really make sure I dig deep in my students' strengths. The other day I was on a plane and I literally said to myself, what kind of teacher would I be if I go back to teach grade 1 right now? And I literally, I'm not lying to you, Lynn, I literally had the biggest smile on my face. Because I said to myself, I have been amazing teaching grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But I said, can you imagine you giving me 30 little grade 1 kids right now for me to embody love and compassion and strength base? I don't know what I would do with myself. I don't know what I would do. That class would be ridiculous, amazing, because I have been growing. So get ready for this, Lynn, talking about mindset. And I know many persons who are listening to this video months and a year after. I want to say to you, today is May the 10th, 2022. I have been growing. Carly, if you and Will and Brad and Casey cannot say that, we can just plug this out and go about our business. Let's go, I don't know, let's go outside. Let's go do something. If we cannot truly say we have been growing, yeah, that's why I said that excitement, because I know the number of growth that I have experienced and the tools that I have sharpened. Imagine me teaching grade 1 come September. Imagine me with the sharpness of my tools. So I wanted to use this conversation as an introduction so everybody understand where I'm coming from. I want you to link the strength base. I want you to link the student strength. Look at what I just put on the slide. Adopting alternative pedagogies. If all you have, Carly, is what you had 5 years ago, you're in trouble. If every single thing Will is doing now is what you have done 10 years ago, Will, you're in trouble. And I didn't say the kids are in trouble. I said you are in trouble. Why I'm saying you're in trouble? Because the idea that you are presenting yourself as an effective, relevant, responsive educator, it's a facade. It's not true. If I have been teaching the same way, it's a facade. So I am very big on the adopting alternative pedagogy. And I want to bring you back to something, and I have to stop the slide so I could share this with you. Remember when we talk about culturally relevant responsive pedagogy, Beth, we talk about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy is not the bunch of books. It's not, the map that you put all those nice things in to say where you're from. I get it. It's not about the food alone. It's about how we embody the work. Culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy is a liberating pedagogy. Write that down. It's an empowering pedagogy. It's an emancipatory pedagogy. It's a freedom pedagogy. It's taking away the things that are disallowing our students from becoming their best and pulling that away so we can empower them. I want to really center that. I see many people, other people are joining us. Tell them to come right in. I'll open the door. No matter how late they come, they're welcome to jump in. I want us to understand. I want to drive this home. I was at a workshop the other day, Beth, and somebody shared, and he said, years ago in Canada, he was born here, and he said, I remember my school doing all the great stuff about foods and foods around the world. And he said, but it was just, it ended there. And he said, nobody explained to him the context behind it. So how are we allowing our students to understand what we call critical cultural consciousness, where we take this to the next level? So what you're doing is not wrong. Let me repeat myself. Going for the box book at the library that talks about indigenous people is not wrong. Using the chart to do all that, where you from, is not wrong. Doing the potluck is not wrong. None of those things are wrong. They are amazing. But left on their own will, left on their own Casey, left on their own Brad, without we moving to another level, it doesn't become responsive. Okay? So we want to acknowledge the uniqueness of our population. And so when we met the last time and we wrapped up the last workshop, which many of you can go back and look at, we look at the considerations. So what I just said, think about your classroom instruction. I love number 2. Sometimes I want to switch number 1 with number 2 because I believe the classroom climate is even more than the instruction. What kind of classroom do you have? What the students say about your room? Is your room that place where the students feel safer? Are you the teacher that they can speak to? Let me go speak to Miss Carly. Let me go speak to Mr. Will. Let me go speak to Mr. Campbell. Let me go speak to this person. What about the space, the student voice on the space? I have learned, get ready for this, another learning from me, Carly. I didn't grow up in a teaching system back in Jamaica where we gave students voice. I did not. We were very autocratic. That's how we were taught to teach in many spaces. And so I have had to unlearn that. And I can say I've done a good job at it and giving students space and voice. Sometimes I give my students space and voice and they look at me like, okay, you want us to decide? I said, yeah. You want us to choose? I said, yes. And they look at me like, really, Dr. Campbell? Really, sir? Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you give students to come into your course and you say to them, we're going to focus on this wide topic, but I want you to choose which area you want to write about. They are excited because I'm not just prescribing things to them. I'm allowing them to work with me so we can all grow together. So we think about these things, and at the bottom there, you see teacher disposition, mindset, and advocacy. And of course, all of this information comes to us from that article I told you about, the Urban Center for Schooling, 2013, that article we discussed about. So think about it. Think about that. And so we get into our discussion for today as we talk about the responsive educator. Are you open? Are you open? Are you open? So what we're going to do, we're going to do a little activity. Don't worry, nothing to judge us about. We're going to give you a blank Jamboard, and I need everybody to jump in. And just take about 4 minutes. Stay in your own space. You're not going to a breakout room or anything. Just by the silent writing. So we're going to do a silent writing. And for those of you who are listening to this video later on, I want you also to participate in that silent writing. And I want you to think about, as we're doing this, I want you to think about culturally responsive teacher. If I had a teacher who was culturally responsive, what were the things I would be expecting? If I am a teacher and I consider myself to be culturally responsive and really relevant, what are the things that are coming to my mind? What are those things coming to my mind? So there's a link in the box, everybody, click on that. But those of you who are watching this video a month from now, a week from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and I say that, Carly, because every now and then I get an email from someone who is seeing a video that I made 5, 6 years ago. Right now, I have a bunch of graduate students looking at a video that I did almost 5, 6 years ago about how to engage in online discussion. When they saw the date, they was like, wow. I said, yeah, that time I was teaching grad school online. So it's not just new to pandemic. And there's a way to have those discussions. And so they are learning new tools themselves. So all of us, we are inside this. We're going to take about 3 minutes of silent writing. I'm going to keep recording so everybody can be silent. Keep your mics off. I'm going to keep recording, but I want to share the screen as we record. So I want everybody to think about it. What are those things? So use your sticky notes, everyone. use your sticky notes. I want everybody to jump right in. Use your sticky notes and flood it with sticky notes. All right? Flood it with sticky notes. What comes to mind? Thank you so much. I see somebody starting. What comes to mind when you think about a culturally responsive educator? What word? What phrase? Let's flood it. Let's take 3 minutes to do that. And I want to record those 3 minutes as we're going along. I will also keep taking some notes here. Wonderful. I see some powerful words popping up. When you think about that culturally relevant, responsive educator, what comes to mind? 3 minutes on the clock, everybody. Let's jump right in. All of us. Let's jump right in. I'm gonna ask everybody to jump right in. Let's jump right in, everybody. Yep. I see some powerful things coming in. Yep. I see some powerful things coming in. Yep. I noticed, I must say this as I go along. I was at the couple workshop I've done in the Catholic board, and I noticed the number of times you hear the word student voice. People have been realizing that we have not allowed our student voice as much as we should in our classrooms. And so we see that. That sense of belonging is not a joke. That sense of belonging is not a joke. Thank you. Talk to my parents. You have to connect to the parents. We talk about the growth mindset. What is a growth mindset? How do we bring in lived experience? I love that one. How do we bring in, and I'm going to say something, Will, as I see many people are continuing. Please continue flooding it. It's our jam board, everybody. There's something we do a lot, Will, that I want all of us to correct. All of us. I think a lot of us are guilty of it. When we say we're going to get to know our students, you know what we do? We ask our students so many questions that we want to pull information from them. Some of our students feel that they are being interrogated. You know the reason why, Will? Because we don't share who we are. I discovered that, Carly. Stop asking your children 10 questions about themselves and then you tell them nothing about you. So I asked, when you ask them, where did they spend their holiday? Tell them where you spent yours. You know, when you say to them, what is your favorite meal? Tell them what is your favorite meal. Your students want to know you as well. It's not good. And I noticed I have been very guilty of that. That's how we were taught. Get to know your students. So what's your favorite thing? Where did you go? Who do you live with? And you go and almost it becomes what's supposed to be this beautiful exercise, almost becomes something like an investigation, an inquisition. You know, when I say to my students at the university level, they tell me thanks when I say to them, welcome to the course. Use a picture to tell me about yourself. Any picture. They put pictures of their dogs, their cat, they're traveling, they're on a plane, their family, it's amazing. And then I show a picture of what I want to show. Picture of me eating in Jamaica, picture of me on the beach, picture of me at the river, the waterfall, picture of me with my mama. We have to realize it's important our students get to know who we are. That's a part of the process. So thank you so much. I see this. Thank you so much. So we can stop there, continue flooding it if you want. And remember, you can download a copy of that. And educators who are listening afterwards, you can get to see a copy of this later on as well, because we have it as a link and we'll keep that link. So you can go in maybe even and add to the link. So we'll make sure, Carly, you can save the link. Its link would always be there for a while. People can go in and see what is written and even add their voice to it as well. All right, so we're going to leave that link open for a couple months. That link will be open and you can flood that page. You can flood the next page as well. So Carly, please capture that link and I'm going to leave that link open. So as we get into this conversation, so let's talk about, we're going to wrap this up. We're not going to stay long. We're going to wrap this up. What is, as we're talking about mindset, So who is a culturally relevant and responsive educator? I'm going to show you how all the things you just put there ties in. So the first one we have is a desire to make a difference. That's the first one on our list, a desire to make a difference. What is your desire? How will you make a difference? How do you plan to make a difference? You know, as educators, especially in this time, we're supposed to be agents of social change. You know, I see they are trying to give everybody a title, and I understand giving people a lead title to say you are social justice lead, you are, you know, racial justice lead. I get it. You know, I applied for a job where I'm supposed to be, or I will be hopefully the racialized justice lead. But I want to make everybody realize I may just be the ringmaster, so to speak, or the lead, so to speak, but everybody is supposed to be invested in social justice, in the change, in the practice, in the pedagogy, in the growth. It's not just the person with the title. And so we have to commit to removing of barriers. And before we do that, we have to see the barriers, Tracy. We see the barriers, ask about the barriers. Why are we doing this? And I did not say you're going to change everything. Change is not an overnight process. A lot of people, Tracy, I think they get very discouraged because they believe if they walk in a school, they must change the entire school. A lot of principals I know have been discouraged, Lynn, because they go to the school and they believe that in the first year, they must turn the school around because they saw it on TV somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I get it. I get it. There are people who have gone in and they are radical change agents. And they change an entire school system, bam, an entire school, I should say, in that slide. But that's not how change happens in every space. Sometimes change happens by breaking down the barriers first before you can build anything. Because sometimes they're setting foundation. And if you know anything about building a house, many times people will never get to see your foundation. They just see the beautiful house. They don't see the foundation. There are teachers who have gotten classes that are rough and they have laid the foundation for the next teacher to build. So don't feel discouraged if you're not getting it all done in this one school year. But have you laid strong foundation? Have you created the conditions for learning? One of the conditions that I realized that I had to create for learning is allowing people to feel safer in my classroom. And I'm going to say this very, very clear. I've been thinking about safe spaces and safe for classroom long before this was popular. Because while I was teaching in the Bahamas, I was working for a college once, Sojourner Douglas College, and I realized I had people in my class who I don't think they really was learning the best, and I don't think they were at a place to learn so much from me, but they were in a classroom when they were so motivated. I don't know how to explain that to you. And I had more than one student say to me, because I was teaching college maths. I was teaching college math. Dr. Campbell, the course is, rough. I'm not the best maths person, but I wouldn't miss your class for anything. And I said, I know you're not doing well, but you are always here and you're on time and you seem to love the class. And they said to me, because I'm getting something from your class more than maths. My class was extremely motivated. When you left my classroom in the night, and they used to let my classroom in the evening, I think it was 9 p.m. They said, I never feel so energized at 9 p.m. And so I was creating conditions. And in other classes, they would take that learning. And of course, they passed my course. Because you can help but be motivated and want to try again. So when I would say to adults, let's do it over, they'll be like, yeah, let's do it over. They'll be like, let's do it over. It wasn't a discouragement. They said, let's do it over, because I created the conditions for learning. The next one there is high expectations for all students. So we labored this topic. But I want to point out the last thing on the bullets, and that's the accommodations and the scaffolding. I remember when I was doing curriculum development, Lynn, I will never forget the university I was doing curriculum development for at the time. I was creating an online course, and they said to me, we want to make sure we put everything in manageable bits. So we had the content and we had to break it down in manageable bits. I have watched teachers in 2022, right this year. I've watched my teacher candidates teach and they pour so much in 20 minutes. I would be drunk by the end of that class. It was just so much in 20 minutes. And it was so many concepts. And it was so many ideas. And it was so many examples. And I'm like, whoa, I'm exhausted, Carly, watching. I'm exhausted watching. How are we making sure we are providing the content to our students in manageable bits? What does scaffolding look like in your classroom? What does the differentiation look like? And let me just say something. Differentiation is work. It is extra work. It is extra work. Giving your students 3 different ways to evaluate a class, that's work. And for them to choose, you know, if you give everybody multiple choice, then you mark it and you go. But then you have people doing artistic, you know, ways. Persons are doing an essay. Persons are trying to do a video. Somebody's creating a graphic. That's a lot of variation. But I'm going to tell you 2 things right now that you will never challenge me on. One of them is that you, as an educator, realize how much you are enthused and motivated when you put the effort in to give those options. Universal design for learning, multiple ways of knowing, multiple ways of expression. You feel a level of excellence when you realize I've created 3 separate assignments for this final evaluation. But it's work. We know it's work. Let's not pretend. One thing about me, Carly, I think you all know me by now. I'm definitely coming up to Rainy River one of these days because I want to meet you all in person. But I could tell you, I'm not here to pretend. It's extra work. When I have to mark papers and I have 3 different people choosing option, there's 3 different rubrics to create. There's back and forth. But nothing beats when my students say to me, wow, this was so good. I really want to sharpen my lesson plan skills and I get to use your course to do that. Somebody says, Dr. Campbell, thank you so much. I get to write 10 poems. You know, I love writing poems. And in this big assignment, this major course at the master's level, I get to create poetry. But I didn't even realize I could have used poetry to talk about social justice. If I show you poems my students use and created about social justice, you'd end up crying. Powerful pieces. Powerful pieces. The next one is, this is a big one. Sociocultural consciousness. As an educator, you have to understand the impact of cultural structures on opportunities. You have to understand that when children are coming off a plane and they're new to Canada, they're immigrant, come to their immigrant status and their background, you have to realize it's not the same experience. A child who comes to your classroom coming from a refugee camp a week ago is not the same child who came here, landed as a permanent resident with his mom and his dad and his entire family moved here. It's not the same. I'm going to share a little story to you, Carly, and everybody. I have to share this story to you. I had an amazing teacher I worked with a couple of years ago. And we teach grade 5, 6 together, 5, 6 split. And of course, we talk about refugee in grade 5. In grade 6, on social studies, you know it, Canada's response to the world. We talk about refugees in the social studies curriculum. This school is in a very privileged neighborhood, very, very privileged neighborhood. Literally, the school is built in the middle of one of those really amazing community. You almost think it's a private school, you know, those kind of school smack in the middle of all these nice houses. And so the parents believe that the school belongs to them. You know those parents, and it's like a private school. They want to run the school a certain way. So we never had any kids, you know, come to the school who was a refugee. And so we talk about refugee in grade 6. And we talk about those people in. You get it. I know you get it. We teach about those people well. And so we have done that for years. Just like how many of you talk about Black people, about Indigenous people, about gay people. You don't talk with. It's a difference. It's a difference. And so I left the school, amazing teacher. And 2 or 3 years ago, 2019, I got a phone call. It was from the teacher at the school. She said, hey, Mr. Campbell. I said, hey, what's going on? She said, I want to talk to you. She said, we have talked about refugee kids, for a while together. And I said, yeah. She said, I don't know how to teach this class now because I have a refugee girl in my class. And I smiled. And she was like, Campbell, I'm serious, man. And I said, no. I have nothing to tell you. She said, Campbell, I'm serious. That's why she called me Campbell. I said, Belange, the fact that you call me to ask me that tells me you are going to do amazing. I have nothing to tell you. You think it was necessary to talk to me because you want to change up the pedagogy? Because you're not talking about a refugee child. You have a refugee child and you want to talk to her? I said, whatever you do, and she's amazing. I said, whatever you do will be amazing. I'm going to be honest with you, Lynn. I gave her no suggestion. I think I maybe give her one idea, but I gave her nothing. I said, you're going to be amazing. The fact that you are aware that you cannot teach the class the same way because the people you are talking about is now right in front of you, and you want to make sure she's empowered. That's the end of that. So I want us to think about, these are the little lessons. People love my workshop for a reason, because the little dynamic things that change is what I wanted to focus on. I could bring through you a whole bunch of theoretical stuff. What is that going to help us? What's that going to do? If you are doing your master's degree with me or your PhD with me, fine, let's get into it, because we must, it's foundation. But we want to talk about what happens when that little girl is in front of you in your classroom. That little boy, that person says to you, well, miss, my pronouns are they and they. What do? I want you to have that social critical consciousness. And you see the second thing, what it says? Self-reflection is foundational. Show me a teacher who is not reflecting. I show you a bunch of students who are suffering. Some of you say, Dr. Campbell, oh my God, that is so harsh. It's not harsh, it's the truth. Show me a teacher who does not reflect at all on their pedagogy, and I show you a bunch of kids who are suffering because you're not reflecting enough to change anything. Are you that teacher who goes to school with a great idea and all of a sudden you realize it's not working out and you just scrap it? I'm that teacher. I scrap it, Carly. I say, you know what? This is not working out. Let's play some music. You're going to get the rest of the period to do whatever. Tomorrow, we'll take it up. And when I come tomorrow, Carly, I am ready. You won't even believe it. I start teaching from outside in my car. I start the lesson from in my car because I'm so ready. I'm so pumped because I have gone back to fix it. We're talking about us. The topic is the mindset, the actions and mindset of the culturally relevant and responsive educator. We're not talking about the pedagogy. We're talking about us. We're talking about our practice. The next one we have is the constructivist approach. We're going to wrap this up earlier today. You're going to be leaving earlier because I compacted in a certain way, not because I have somewhere to be, because I wanted us to get it and I want to not overdo it. I don't want to overkill. I've seen that before. I don't believe in that. So we will be dismissing a little bit early today because I want to make sure I zero in on these things and then we are done. Constructivist approach. Are you seeing your students as capable? Are you learning along with your students? It's right there. If you're an early childhood educator, in your field, you talk a lot about constructivist approach because the kids are capable and they're able. Do we see them as capable? Or we see them as fragile and not have enough? Sometimes we are so big on the deficit. We see a child coming to us and the child is new and you look at them like, oh, you're new. You know nothing. Welcome to Kansas City. Let me pour into you everything. Of course, I want you to pour into them everything you have, but figure out what they have already. Figure out what they have already. Can we mix it? Make it more juicy? Can we mix it? Or we have to pour in alone because we are the men, we are having the savior mentality. Are we doing that? Are we intentional about who our students are and how we see them? I want you to notice as I'm going along with you, notice my pictures. I know you already picked that up. Notice the pictures I'm using. Notice how intentional I've selected pictures. I want you to see. Here we go back again to the deep knowledge of our students. We have to work to build relationships. Culturally relevant responsive pedagogy. You said it. You are the one that said parents. It's right there. You are the one that says community. It's right there. None of you notice what's coming up, but you know it. I'm not here to teach you anything great or new. I'm here for us to have conversation because conversations are necessary. They are necessary. Every now and then you have to go back to our topic. That's why I tell people all the while, if you see a workshop that you did 5 years ago being offered again, you should always go back. If you know the number of things that I've learned by doing these same topics 10 times for the year, you'd be surprised. Repetition, reinforcement. So you need to have that deep knowledge of your students, get to know who they are and share yourselves with them. We talked about this already. I love this one. I love this one. Your culturally responsive teaching practice. And I could have given you list and list of stuff. And all I put there, I put dynamic and open to change. That's all I need from us. That's honestly all I need from us. I want us to realize that our pedagogy needs to be dynamic and it needs to be open to change. We need to try new things. And yes, it's extra work. You know, I like to use that language because I think a lot of people, when you hear this kind of workshop, you walk away thinking, you know, you win some medal when you say, oh, it's a lot of work. We know it's a lot of work. We know. I don't know who told you it was. I don't know if you're a director or some superintendent tell you it wasn't going to be a lot of work. If they told you that, that's a lie. It's effort. It's work. What we're doing here is effort. Every single one of you who is in this group and you have turned up for this conversation, I guarantee you could have been doing something else. You could have. You could have. You have been here because it's intentional, Lynn. And I hope that every single note you have taken, Beth and Trace, and I've seen you, I hope you know that it's going to come in handy. You can have this conversation with your school. You can have this conversation with another group. Yes, I want you to get back up to ABC, duh. But I can tell you, Carly could do this presentation. Lynn could do this. Tracy, you could do this. I know for a fact you could. Why? Why you don't know me, Dr. Campbell? Yes, I know you. I know you enough that you have been intentional in the interaction with me. You have been here. You have shared. You have participated. You can share this content with another group. So when Carly says to me, hey, Dr. Campbell, I'm presenting on the same topic with, you know, in a particular school, I say, go for it. Here's an extra article that I found the other day. Use it. Absolutely, that's who I am. And that's exactly who the person I am. Because I can't teach everybody in the entire space. So I know for a fact that you are open to change. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And the last one before we wrap up is teaching from the heart. That empathy thing there is everything. That empathy there's tons of research on empathy. There are tons of research. I actually want to talk about that. I talk about that in a book, in a workshop, in a book that I'm writing on, right? The power of empathy. The power of empathy. There's a lot of research about there on empathy. How are we using that? Are we teaching our students to have empathy for each other? That's about culturally relevant responsive pedagogy. That's about their own cultural competence. That's about teaching them that critical consciousness. If somebody falls and they are hurting, that is not the time we laugh. Somebody falls and they are hurting, That's not the time we laugh. You have to teach kids that. Empathy says that person is hurting. I know what it feels like to hurt. Let me go get a plaster or a Band-Aid. Let me go run and call teacher. Let me go ask to the office for a piece of ice. I was at a school that they had ice packs in the front office. Every day recess, there was 5 and 6 and 10 ice packs outside. It was an ice pack school, Carly. And some people who didn't need ice pack just go for one. It was like, it was, I cannot forget. I was like, why is there so many ice packs out here? They don't need it. It was a thing. Somebody had an ice pack, let me go ask the principal for an ice pack too. It was a thing. I will never forget, right? But it's empathy coming from the heart, the duty of care. So I want to leave that with all of us. I really want to leave that with all of us. And it's the end of our series. And I want to encourage you all to follow me. Look at my website. For those of you who have never been to my website, it's there, DR.ABC, DR.ABC.ca, one of the best websites, easiest ever. I couldn't believe I was able to get those letters. DR.ABC.ca. That's my website. Follow me on Teachable Moments. Follow me on LinkedIn. I love when I see people in my workshop on LinkedIn. Follow me there. Join me there. Ask me a question there. Jump in and talk with me there. Absolutely. On Twitter, wherever. Always, always, always be free to engage. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for engaging this process with me. Thank you so much for being a part of this 4-part teaching learning series. It's going to be up. Use those videos. Every one of this video that you have in your school, use them in your staff room. Use them in your staff meeting. The other day, Lynn, I got a call from a school who needed me and I couldn't, do it because I was so busy with other things. And she came back, she said, Dr. Campbell, I used that one of the video you had for the entire staff meeting. I said, there you go. No, I said, you need to use me so I could get paid. But I said, there you go. It's there for your use. So if you go on my YouTube page, any video on my YouTube page it's for public use. You don't need to ask my permission. Nobody needs my permission to use my YouTube video. What people do ask my permission for is when they put it in a course. I have more than one professor says, I'm putting your videos in a course that I'm developing because now it's content, right? It's link is placed in a thing. And all I need to do is give me credit. So go ahead and use those things in your staff meeting, in your classrooms, in your workshops, whatever you're doing. So thank you so much for this series. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Carly, over to you for the final wrap up. And we are done.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm chuckling over here because we are definitely an ice pack school over here as well. I think many of us can relate. I want to thank Dr. Campbell for his support as we undergo this journey in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Thank you for all the leadership and the insight you provided, and especially thank you for the challenging and thought-provoking conversations over the past several weeks. Today, I think we can all say, I am growing, and we are learning as we undergo this equity journey. And I also want to thank everyone for coming today and for doing the work to break down barriers in our schools. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everybody. You know where to find me if you need me. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.